This was the first time that in Spain public land was given to make cooperative housing. This was the first building made of wood in Spain. It was done for a sustainable reason, and instead of being rewarded, we were punished because we lost one or two units. My name is Carlos Baiges. I'm a member of Lacol, which is an architects cooperative, inhabitant in La Borda, which is this housing cooperative in my back. The building was finished at the end of 2018, so we've been 2 years living here. My office, Lacol, was in charge of the design. I'm a housing cooperative that started the project. It started in this site where we are, which is an old factory called Camprubí. So in 2011, a group of people gathered together to manage one of the buildings here. And from that, there was a group of people concerned in housing that started the housing cooperative. The land where the building is now, there was 3 old small houses that were demolished to make room for social housing. So actually the plot now belongs to the municipality, and we have a leasehold of 75 years. All the area was part of a urban transformation from the old factory that included the 3 small houses. For instance, here on the other side, there's also rental public housing, social housing, and over there there's some leaseholds, and this was the first time that in Spain public land was given to make cooperative housing. Barcelona has been quite pioneer on this new wave of cooperative housing. Spain did have cooperative housing since especially the 70s, but at that time the end was to make it owner-occupied, so it's not cooperative anymore. Now we are in a new wave of what actually it's considered cooperative housing, more like the zero equity. Barcelona was pioneer on doing this type of projects, especially in public land. There were few cases in Spain in private land, so that means less affordable. Here it has been the first case, but now it's more like a public policy here in many other municipalities to give land to cooperatives to make affordable housing, but based on a community. So the residents, we have a share in the cooperative. We have our share as members, but this is not a share that would relate to a property title. We are only have kind of a deposit in the co-op. The property of the units belongs to the cooperative as a whole. So this way, we are sure that there's no way to speculate or resell the units.
It's like a golf course membership in
kind of, I guess. It's like a club. Here, the idea also was that this price never goes up. Previous examples of social housing in Spain was that it was affordable for the first ones, but then it went to free market prices. So the new generations had to pay more money for that. And this is something that we didn't want. Tenants do now is we pay a monthly fee that is set by the cooperative, and the idea is to make it as cheap as possible, but only to pay back the loans and for maintenance or improvements. The rental market in the last 5 years has increased like 60%. In our case, has increased 0. So it was already cheaper at that time. So now imagine, it's even cheaper compared to the free market.
There's 28 units. Is it mostly families or is it students or kind of mixed?
Mixed, and that's what we wanted. So we have the younger, have 20 some, and then there's people who are retired already, and many families with kids or young couples or singles. Because the land belongs to the municipality and it's social housing, there's a maximum income that you can have, and you should have not any other property. It's 4.5 or 5 times the minimum income. No, even less. There was at the beginning of the project 2 high school professors, and they were out of the project because their salaries combined were higher than the limits. Even if the fees are not that high, we still have to put this deposit, and we know this is a barrier. So we are working now with government and with social banks to make it even 0 if possible in the cases of people who have no means for save money. In the case of Barcelona, this started as a pilot project, and now they developed like a public policy where almost every year they make a call offering plots to new communities. So now it's 5 more that are under construction and 3 more projects are being done. And this system has been copied to other municipalities, especially in Catalonia, but also in some other places in Spain. Different sizes, like from 10 to 50, maybe. But we also found it problematic when it's too small, because it makes it harder to make it affordable, because the basic cost that you have to pay for a building here, the elevator, all the starting cost, it's a burden for the smaller projects.
Is the city charging the co-op rent?
We pay annual fee for 1,000 euros per year. Now the new projects, they even pay less than that. But obviously compared to what we should pay for this land, it's almost nothing. That's going to be a public park, yeah. Now there's only like sport fields over there. This was the tallest building made of wood in Spain. This also led to like a push to CLT construction in Barcelona. So prefabricated wood from the north of Spain. This is more sustainable. Obviously, all the concrete needs energy, water, resources that are very complicated to recycle. During the construction, we don't use that much energy, materials, CO2. It's actually a little bit more expensive than concrete or steel. The construction was very quick. So it took only 6 weeks to make the structure of the building. So every week they would build the floor and only 4 people needed to do the assembling. Less risk, less time, less money at the end also when it comes to construction. The core is made of wood as well. So this is our entrance. We don't have car parking. We managed to change the regulation in Barcelona that forced us to have underground parking for cars. Instead, we have bike parking at the entrance. And here in the ground floor, we have one of the communal spaces, which is the kitchen and dining room. Most of us don't own cars. Yeah, there's only 8 families that have a car, and they already had a spot in the area, because people who live in social housing tend not to have cars here in Barcelona. We are 3 minutes from a subway station and then 10 minutes from the biggest train station in Barcelona. So Barcelona is super well connected. It was a law done during the 90s when the car ownership was increasing. There was this policy to try to remove the cars from the street. So the idea was to put them underground. But they never revisited this policy after decades. And now in many neighborhoods, there is a surplus parking spaces, which actually leads into more cars. Because if you have more availability of parking spaces, you are actually promoting the use of cars. And this is going up in opposite direction to the current ideas on how the city should behave in Barcelona. So the units do have a kitchen inside the house, but we wanted a bigger space, either to have meals. So now every Wednesday we take shifts and we cook for all the community here. But also it's a space that we can use for our guests or when we want to throw a party or a dinner. Obviously, we didn't design it thinking on a pandemic, and we found it behave beyond our expectation during the restrictions of movement, complete other dimension compared to the people living in more regular building. All these networks of support, they existed here already. This is the stairs, wood, as I promised, and the elevator core is made of wood.
The wood feels like it's like a lodge, like instead of a concrete like bunker.
So this is a multifunctional space that we have, like the bigger communal space that now is basically taken by the kids of the community as a playground. Leads to the end of the stairs. We have 2 guest rooms. We finished the communal laundry as well. We have to admit that kids were not very included in the process of designing the building and the project. But now we are very happy because they are the ones that are more free and use the building the best. And this space is a proof of that. And actually, we're now also doing improvements, can use it more freely without causing disturbance to the others with the noise and this type of things, because this space is open to the courtyard. So there's going to be a curtain here in the future. You can see this is on top of the courtyard. We have a winter house to control the heat in winter, so it helps to prevent that we lose some heat in winter. Totally self-controlled by sensors, and then when it's hot, there's some shades and there's the openings in the windows that open. And here we have like one of the two communal terraces. This one is basically for laundry, but also for, see, there's some tables. And here on top of this part, we have a green roof and the solar panels. This is the courtyard of the units, mine unit, which is a medium size. Or the smaller one, if you only have these two spaces, like this space at the entrance and another one facing the future park. In the middle, you will have the bathroom. Behind this giant door, there is our bedroom. That makes that we have a medium apartment, which is like 60 square meters. The smaller ones are 40 square meters. And if we would have a bigger apartment, we would have another bedroom here, making it 75 square meters, 3 varieties of typologies. And then the idea is that there's a lot of diversity, because depending on where you put the kitchen, like we put it here on a L shape, but if it would be as a line or maybe here, the result is that we have 28 units that are completely different, although they come from the same matrix. But some people actually do have the living room there or the bedroom there, depending on how they did the layout. The wood panels, the problem that they have is that they are so light that they carry the sound very well. And because they are panels, they go from one unit to the other. Walls, there's a lot of layers of acoustic isolation, so there's no problems when it comes to air noise. When it comes to impact noise, was not as good as we wanted, although it's better than any building I lived in my entire life. Probably one of the biggest investments that we did, but that pay off very well, were the windows and the doors. So they're made of wood, but they close very well, and they have different ways of closing. And these actually help us to keep heating consumption very low. The heater, it's super small. So heating, we estimated that the consumption, the total consumption of the 28 units was similar to one big single house, lower environmental impact and a cheaper price, because electricity and gas prices in Spain are very expensive. The construction code, the only thing that requires you is that the building doesn't fall down after, in our case, 90 minutes of fire. And we could prove that this was the case here, and that was it. Fire brigades and all the technical members of the government, basically because they like it and they find it more amusing than any conventional construction you have to see every now. We could not fight every single battle. For instance, one problem that we had with this winter house I showed you was that because of the Barcelona code of building, this count as a construction site, not as a square meters that we built. So we lost 1 or 2 units because the patio was counted not as open space, but as a built space. And here we were very disappointed, because we were doing something that it was done for a sustainable reason, and instead of being rewarded, we were punished because we lost 1 or 2 units. In certain things like the parking, we won the battle, and in many others we didn't have the time and energy to change regulations. On the street facade, we only have 4 stories, while here we have 6 plus the ground floor. And here, in the 5th and 6th floor, there's a step back from the building. So this, for instance, could have been more housing space. Our first idea was to give the units very bold, but the problem is that the code here requires you that everything is working and the plumbing and the electricity. So we only could just not put the paint on the walls or the inner walls or the kitchen in a very basic condition. But what we did was to leave the communal spaces unfinished. And this, we've been doing it the last 2 years with self-construction or hiring ourselves the professionals, but little by little when we save the money. So for instance, the communal kitchen was completely finished only a few weeks ago before it wasn't completely finished. Or there's other spaces, for instance, in each floor there is a storage space, and you see that we still don't have the doors. So we try to save money and then do the next improvements. It's already included in the fee that we pay.
In the monthly fee, so you're sort of just waiting for that account to accumulate.
On one side and then on the other side, but we have time to do it. The average, like our case, is 500 euros. The bigger, they pay around 600, and the smaller, less than 400.
There's a 20% deposit that you pay.
18,500 euros per family. This is something that we put up front in different years, and then if you leave now, you get it back, and the next person or family that comes in put it for you. There's a lot of inspiration in the cooperatives in Switzerland, like in Zurich, buildings done in Belgium and France with Lacol in Basel, more when it comes to sustainability. Cooperative housing model, the main inspirations here were Denmark and Uruguay. Pillars or the critical things to consider land, funding, and the people. At least here, we still don't have like public banking that can give loans to social housing in a small or even zero interest. Housing that we are proposing here with the cooperative housing, it relies a lot on people, and not everybody is prepared to be part of this type of project that takes a lot of energy and time. People understand all the effort that this takes, but also that there is professionals that are willing to help this type of project. Before moving in here, we already knew each other. In our case, it was like a 5-year process of working on this. Because we are responsible of this project, we are forced to meet and to discuss and to do things together. Sometimes we have to rely on professionals when there is a specific case of conflict. Hard for us because we are part of the community. There's a lot of learnings on the communal spaces, on the sustainability aspect, on the ownership model that can be transferred into other projects. All of us who are here, we did renounce to be homeowners because we saw what home ownership model has done to people in Spain with the foreclosures and the people being evicted of their houses, losing their homes. Us, we could not even afford, but even if we could, we would not want for us.
Thank you so much for a tour, Carlos.
You're welcome. I hope you can get something from that.
Take care.
Have a nice day.